Hey, this is Judah Mantel for SceneForge Studio, and in this video I'm going to go over version 0.6.29. It has a great improvement to the way the ground system works that allows for so much more customization in your scene that I'm really excited about. So let's jump right in. So I have this scene here that we've been using in all the other example videos, and with this ground material over here. Now if I wanted to change this material, I would previously have to go to the visual settings and find a section called ground settings. Now this is no longer here, because that system was completely replaced with something so much more powerful and, quite frankly, a lot more fun to use. So on the left, underneath the visual settings, is a new menu option that has a mountain option, a mountain icon, and that's because now in this new release we have a full terrain editing workflow, which is super cool. You can see when I open up this menu, I have this new brush and a cursor assigned to my mouse with a bunch of options in the menu. So I'm going to go over them from left to right. Up at the top, we have these different options for the modes, you can see here, which I'll go over in a minute. Then we have the brush option, which changes what is actually going to be used on our cursor. And then we have the brush size and strength. And what we can do with this is click and drag to sculpt our terrain using these different brushes. So you can see if I select this round one, we get these interesting craters, and with these you can create really nice landscapes in the backgrounds of your scene. So you can see here in the little viewfinder right over here, in the background we have some nice mountains, which really adds to the variety of your scene and just makes everything so much more interesting. And you can see when paired with some fog at a nice time of day, you can create some really cool looking environments. So I'm going to turn these back off as I go through the rest of the settings here. So this is to raise the terrain. Next we have the down arrow, which is lowering the terrain to ground level, as you can see here. That'll lower it back to 0. Then next to that we have my favorite option, and that is the water tool. And this allows you to actually sculpt below ground level to reveal water underneath. So you can use this to craft really interesting lakes and even small little rivers and streams around your environment. And this water looks great. You can see if I change the time of day, we have really nice reflections on the water and our environment. Next we have the smoothing tool, which is useful for blending the water into the terrain, as you can see here, or if you have a really spiky peak something over here and you want to smooth it out, you can use this tool to do so. Next we have the most important thing in my opinion, and that is the painting tool, because previously you can only select a single material to be applied to your entire ground, which obviously was not very realistic or practical. So now using this brush, you can paint using these brushes as well as a selected material to paint the texture onto your environment. So you can see here now I have this nice grass texture, or I can switch to this marble, and it kind of has like an airbrush effect that you can use to blend between them, like that. Now at the moment you can switch between up to 4 different slots of your palette, but in the future this will be expanded to much more. And if you wanted to swap out a material in these slots, you can just click the little arrow icon or edit icon to open up the material selection window, where you can select from over 200 materials included in SceneForge. So I'm going to select a brick just for this silly example here, and you can see when I select it, it'll actually replace every instance of that material in your scene with the new one you selected. So if I create, let's say, a interesting little path here, and it has the right formation that I like, but ultimately it's not the right texture, I can just swap it out with no problem for a nice green grass. Or if you just wanted to use a flat terrain or with a single material, you can just select the one you want and click Fill Terrain Texture, and that'll just fill everything. And this is really cool and so much fun to use because you can just create a lot of interesting blending colors and textures in your environment. So you can add snow on the top of your mountains if you have a snow material and things like that. This system also has full undo and redo support. As you can see here, you can go back through any step, from sculpting to painting to anything you want, which is super helpful. And in the future, in the next release, the regular undo redo system for moving objects around is going to be integrated with this as well, so you can just use your regular keyboard shortcuts for undoing everything in your scene, which is super helpful. You can see I quickly set up an example with an old rowboat here, which looks really great. You can see the way the water interacts with the environment and the reflections, and I'm really happy with this really quick mock-up of a scene. Now, a couple of things to note about the future of this system. Hopefully in the next coming releases, we're going to be adding support for foliage, so you can add grass, you can paint on grass and trees to your environment, which is super cool and super helpful as well, just for building out realistic worlds. And a couple other things to note is that SceneForge is really not meant to be a full world-building tool. You're not going to have endless sprawling landscapes and forests and world-scale environments simply because it's not meant for that. It's meant for previs of environments and, arguably more importantly, live compositing of scenes. So you can certainly use this tool for adding background environments and landscapes, but if you have a storyboard of a scene where your character moves from one location to another, you're probably going to want to create those locations in separate scenes rather than in different locations on this large map. So just keep that in mind when working with your scenes. And yeah, so that is version 0.6.29. I'm super happy with the way things are coming out, and of course this is all going to be improved upon and built up in the future. So I can't wait to see what you create with it. I will see you in the next video.